All right, hello everyone. Welcome. Let's go ahead and get class started for today. We are going to do a little bit of review today. We're going to learn some more command line stuff today. I'm also going to discuss the first homework assignment with you probably towards the end of class today. So that's all fun stuff that's coming up. I hope you've got your command lines, your terminals open and ready to do some work, because I'm going to be asking you some exercises in class today as well. Let's start off with a little bit of a review, kind of what we talked about last time. Always good to get practice using these new tools, especially if they are brand new to you. I know that I have a list of exercises for us to work on, but it's not here. It's in a different folder, right? It's in a different directory. So in order to get there, we're going to need to use something called CD, right, for change directory. What's that thing called that I type after CD? Yes, I type a directory or a folder, but we actually have another name for that. It starts with a P. Kind of looking for. What do I type after CD? 4 letters. Starts with a P. It's a path. It's a path. So it's a path to any directory, any folder that exists on our machine. And I kind of wanted to start today by reviewing something that I didn't spend a whole lot of time on last class, but it's so important. I want to make sure to really reiterate this concept. We have 2 ways that we can specify paths. I can specify paths either as an absolute path or as a relative path. And the difference is all in where we start from. Where do we begin our description of this path? So a path is really, as the name implies, just a list of directions. How do I get to this destination? Am I going to start from where I am right now? That's called a relative path. Or am I going to start from some well-known, defined landmark? That's what we call an absolute path. And that well-known defined landmark is very simple. It's just going to be that slash, which we said has a name, starts with an R. It's the root. That's right. It's the root of our file system. It is the C drive on your Windows machines, your PCs. It is the Mac HD, I think is what it's called, on the OS X machine. It is basically the beginning of all files. So if you see a path that starts with a slash, that is an absolute path. That means I'm starting from the root. I'm starting from the very beginning of the file system, and that's how I'm going to tell you how to get to where I'm going. If you see a path that doesn't start with a slash, that means that it is a relative path. That means that I'm going to tell you how to get to where I want to go from where I am right now, from the directory that I am currently in. You might actually be in the root directory. You can use relative paths in that sense, but they both have different uses, right? An absolute path will always be correct because I'm telling you to start from the same point every time and get to that and get to that directory that way. So if I start something with the root from the slash, right, I can tell you how to get to some directory, some file from wherever I happen to be. It will always work. Relative paths, that's not true. The relative paths that I supply only work if I happen to be, in this place where I am right now. If I go somewhere else and I try to use that same relative path, it's maybe not going to work because those directories, those folders don't exist in that location. But relative paths are easier in situations like we're in right now, where the directory I want to go in is in this directory, right? The place where I want to go that has the exercises is right next to me. It's right next to where I'm at. I know you probably don't have this on your machine, but I know that I have a directory in here called documents, and within that documents directory there is a directory for this class, right? You may also have directories for your classes, and if you do, I would suggest CDing into the one that you have for this class right now, or if you don't have one for this class, maybe now is the time to create one. How can I do that on the command line? How can I make a directory? Yeah. mkdir, good, yeah. Absolutely right. So if you want to make a directory, maybe you want to make one for today, for all the command line exercises and stuff we're going to be working on. You can use the mkdir command and type a name. right? Some sort of directory name afterwards. But I'm going to go into the files that I know to exist. Again, these are only on my computer. I wouldn't expect you to have these. Oops, kind of spoiled my next question a little bit. I wouldn't expect you to have this directory on your computer, right? This is a directory that exists on my laptop. You have different directories on your laptop. But to see the contents, to see the actual files, I was going to ask you this question, but I spoiled it a little bit. We use the ls command. So the list command, the ls command, just shows us all of the different stuff that is in this directory, that is in the directory that I'm currently in. If you just made a new directory, there's probably nothing in it. There's probably no files in that directory if you just made a brand new one. And that's kind of where I want to start with today, is how to introduce some commands to work more directly with files. So everything we talked about today up till now has basically been review of what we talked about last class, and we're still going to use all that stuff a lot today. But I want to start talking to you about how to work with files a bit more, manipulate files a bit more on the command line, because that's a very useful thing to know how to do. So the first thing I want to show you is how do I make a new file using the command line. So you can see the list of files that exist here. Excuse me, right now. If I want to make a brand new file, I can use the touch command, followed by the name of the file that I want to create. So I might use today's date as the name of this file. It's the 22nd, right? Yeah. I run that command, and then after I run the list command again, you'll see that, okay, before I ran the touch command, I didn't have that file, and now after I run the touch command, I do have that file. That file now exists. Did not exist before. Also, too, a good reminder, if I actually navigate to where that file is on my computer, right, using the file browser, I can also see that, oh yeah, it exists there too. The commands are directly manipulating. It's the same files, right? You're going to see the same files in both locations. It's all the same. All right, what else? What if I want to get some stuff into that file? What if I want to take some information and somehow get information into that file? Right now it's empty. I made that file. There's absolutely nothing in it. I could have proven that to you if I tried to open it a moment ago, but I already closed that window. But you know, let's put some stuff into it now. What do we want to say? I can say anything I want with the echo command. Remember, if I just say echo by itself, it'll just kind of mimic, right? Kind of mimic me, repeat the message. But this is the print command equivalence that we have available on Bash, available on the command line. But what I want is not for it to just print it back to me right away. I want it to print that message into the file that I just created. So, okay, in order to do that, I can say echo hello, and then I'm going to use this character next, an angle bracket pointing to the right. This is called a redirect. So I am redirecting where the output of this command is going to go. If I just do it as is, it just spits it right back out to me on the command line. But if I want to, I can redirect it into a file. I'll just use tab. That's another good reminder of using tab to complete file names, right? If you try to type it out yourself, especially if it's a long file name, much more prone to making mistakes. You can use that tab key, type the first few characters, and then you'll know, the computer will know which file you're talking about. All right, so notice that this time it didn't print out that message. It did not print out the message to the command line. I redirected that message to go into the file instead. And so how do I know that it's actually in there? Well, you know, you could navigate to where it is and open it up. Whoops, wrong folder. Here it is right here. And I can see that once this gets open, that my message is there. But actually, I don't need to leave the command line even to do that. I want to show you one of my very favorite commands, one that I think I may have already used. The cat command has nothing to do with the furry creatures that it first probably implies. Shout outs to my cats Lindsay and Saoirse at home. But what it does do is it displays the contents of any file on the machine. So if I want to display the contents of the file that we've been working with, I can type the name of that file in, and here it'll say, oh, that's the contents. That's what's in that file. This is a really interesting utility. I mean, in some cases it's very useful, right? I know that it should just say the word hello in here, but think for a second that you could actually use that command on whatever you want. So if you're not careful and you use it on something strange like, well, I mean, it's not even necessarily strange to use it on, an HTML file, for example, that I happen to have laying around, right? That's very clearly some HTML code. But what would perhaps be a little bit strange would be to use it on a zip file. Like, what does a zip file look like? Can you just open up a zip file and read the contents? And the answer is no, you can't. Right? What does this mean? I have no idea. It's trying its best to show me the contents of the zip file, but I'm not meant to look at this and read it. That's for the computer, right? That's binary stuff, probably meant to be read by the computer and operated on by the computer, not read as text for a human person to read. So, you can take a look at whatever you want, and there actually is some stuff in here that is readable, but there's also a bunch of stuff that just simply is not, and is not meant to be read. And wow, look at what it did to my terminal down here. I wasn't expecting that. Another good command, if you ever find yourself in a weird situation with their terminal, the clear command. Whoa, hey, all right. I really picked the wrong file, didn't I? Let's try that again. The clear command will make it as though the last two things that you tried never happened. Hopefully. All right. So let me go back to where I was, because I want to show you some more stuff with the cat command and redirects. So the redirects, the nice thing about redirects, I can use them on whatever I want. So if I take ls, for example, I could also take the output of ls, all the stuff that's getting printed, and redirect that into the file that we're playing around with, right? So what is that going to do? Notice that the output of ls did not get shown to me. I redirected. I said, don't print the output here. Redirect that output into this file that I want. So then what does the file look like? And if I cat the file out, you can see, oh, there is the result from ls. It literally took everything that ls would normally show me and just stuck it into the file. That could be useful, right? That could be very useful in some situations. And I mean, if you run ls with additional flags, talked about this last time as well. I think ls-l is the one that shows, what are these called over here? Another word that starts with a P? Permissions, good, yeah. If we want to know what the permissions of the files are, we have to use the -l flag to see those. If you want to do that, you can say ls-l and redirect that into the file, and it'll hopefully do exactly as you would expect, and display the results of ls-l. That's now saved in the file. I actually have a file copy of that output that I can use and do whatever I want. Right? Notice though, maybe somebody already did notice, what happened to the stuff that was in this file before? It's gone. It's gone. So, got to be a little bit careful about how you use these redirects. If you use redirect like this, it's going to erase everything that was in that file and replace it with whatever you're saying you want to be redirected. So this will delete the contents of that file and replace it with ls-l. If you don't want that, there's actually a second form of redirect where if we just tack a second one on there, tack a second arrow on there, Now this is what's known as an append redirect. So it's just going to tack this onto the end of the file. Will not delete the contents. Which one is better, more useful? It depends on what you're doing. Depends on what your goals are. They're both useful in different situations. But you have the option to choose whether you want to keep the stuff that's in the file or replace the contents of the file. And I can show you, right, by coming over here and just putting in a quick echo appended, right? With double arrows, double angle brackets, once I take a look at my file, I'll see that, yes, it kept the ls from before and then appended my little message down at the bottom. Any questions about redirect so far? This can be a tricky thing, but let's see. Let's talk about redirecting in the opposite direction. So everything that we've done so far is take the output of this command and put it into a file. I can actually do the opposite. I can actually take the contents of a file and feed it into a command, which can also be a very useful thing for me to do. Let me show you, one possible way that we could do that. If I just echo in, how do I want to set this up? I don't know that I really need to do anything. I've already got plenty of files here that I can use. There's a command called sort, which does exactly what you think it does. It sorts the contents of the file, typically alphabetically. You can also do it with numbers, right? And if you take a look at the man pages, like we talked about last time, there's lots of options about how you can sort things and, different ways you can affect the sorting. But at its simplest, if I just want to take, right, the sort command, I can use an arrow pointing in the opposite direction. So now I'm redirecting into the command. I'm saying take the contents of some file, whatever file I'm about to type here, which I guess I'll just use the one that we've been using. And then feed that into the sort command. And so it does that. The first character is this dash for all of them, so that makes sorting seem a little... Oh, notice what it actually sorted by. The first part, this chunk, is the same for all of them. So what it actually ended up sorting by is over here. Anybody remember what this column tells me? That's size and bytes, yeah. Not really what I intended, but kind of a silly little example that sort of worked out anyway. It did sort by this column since the first part was the same for all of them. So yeah, you can see that it did actually do some sorting. But it did it based on the contents of the file. So I think that's a very important thing to remember. If the arrow is pointing to the right, it is always going into a file. Always taking information and putting it into a file. If the arrow is going to the left, it's always taking information out of a file and feeding it into a command. Always, 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 always. It's a very important thing to remember. Other than that, the only choice you have is between the single right arrow or the double right arrow. Notice that for the left arrow feeding from a file into a command, there's no double arrow. It's just take everything in the file and feed it in. All right, now it's time to do some exercises. Now it's time to have you do some work. Let me cat the first exercise up here for you. Show you the first one. I want you to talk to a few of your neighbors, get their names, and put them into a file called names. You're gonna have to use the echo command to do this, right? Echo people's names into a file, and then I want you to print the names out in sorted order. We actually just did that a little bit ago with a different file. Can you figure out how to sort the file in reverse order? Take a look at the man pages. I'm gonna give you, I don't know, 5 to 10-ish minutes to do this, and I'll be around if you have any questions or if you just want to say good morning. Yeah, let me know if you need any help. you had to pull those up from last time. Okay. We try to start simple. Like when you go down the search bar, you type in yeah, not hit type dash. Okay, now you know. Does that look better? Okay, that's how I usually start mine. It looks like you just found a different way to open it. Yeah.
Oh shit. We need separate quotes, right?
Oh yeah, I think it's like separate.
Okay.
So most just like minutes. Oh yeah. I think we could probably do like the backslash minutes if you wanted to see which one's the greatest. Yeah.
We're using Echo Combat.
Yeah.
That Echo. Okay.
Yes.
Is there a way to put some delete what you added to it? Because I realized I put all in one.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can do a redirect. Remember, if you just use a single arrow, it will erase everything
Oh,
that's in there.
right. Yeah.
Yep. But remember to use the double arrows if you do it more than like if you do it one line at a time. You have to use double arrows. And yep. Hey, what's up? All right, everybody, if you're not done with the exercise yet, that's okay. I think quite a few people were able to make some progress on it. I do want to work through it real quickly with you before we move on to our next topics. So I'm just going to use, the names of my kids and pets probably to make a names file real quick. Remembering that, okay, if I want to put my daughter's name in first, that's not a problem. I can use the single arrow redirect, especially, actually, I mean, this is actually a little bit of a shortcut even. This will create the file for you if it doesn't currently exist. So some of you may have tried using touch command, and I actually think that's great to get familiar with using the touch command. But if this file called names doesn't exist, well, when I use a redirect into it, it will make it for me. So you actually can rely on the command line to do that for you if you need to. Also, some of you I think may have noticed too that I don't have to put .txt on the end if I don't want to. I can, and that does give a big clue to the computer that there is text in this file, which is not a bad thing. But honestly, those are called extensions, file extensions. That's mostly just to help your computer know what programs to open it up with. I mean, if I wanted to, I could call this names.pdf, and while this file likely would not work if I opened it as a PDF, it would work if I tried to treat it as text. It's very confusing. I would say don't do this. It's not a good idea, but just trying to make the point that there's nothing stopping you. Those file extensions are really somewhat arbitrary in nature. I think trying to keep them consistent is a good thing, so I'm going to use .txt, and then to put the second name in of my cat Lindsay, be careful not to use a single arrow. That'll delete everything that you already had in there. But using a double arrow will append it on. And actually, I think this is another interesting point. I could have used a double arrow on the first one, and it would have still worked exactly the same as well. So I didn't actually have to use a single arrow on the first one. Could have used a double arrow on the first one. I'm pretty sure it still would have worked. Let me add in at least one or two more names here. Put my son in. Don't tell my son that I put the cat in before him. He's 4. He wouldn't mind. My wife's name. All right. And now if I look at the contents of the file, you can see there's the names of all the important people and one cat in my life. But I asked you to sort them. And in order to sort them, we need to use another type of redirect. So we're going to use a redirect in the opposite direction. If I'm taking contents of a file, redirecting it into a command, that's going to be a redirect towards the left. And I just put the name of the file here, and now we can see that it did sort. Some of you, I think, learned the hard way that sort works line by line, right? So if all the names are on one line, well, sort command isn't really going to be able to help you that much. That's okay. I kind of expected some of you to drive off that cliff. That's part of the learning process. But yeah, if you got those names on there. And then the last part was, how do we get this in reverse? I honestly don't know this off the top of my head. I also would have to go look it up in the man pages, but I'm sure there's an option for it. Oh, surprise, surprise. It looks like it's -R. That makes sense to me. So if I say sort -R and redirect the names in, I now get them in reverse order. Any questions about this exercise or any of the commands that we've been taking a look at? Okay. Our next destination, our next topic is a very, 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 very important command. One that gets used all the time, called grep. And grep is a command that allows you to search the contents of files or any base of text, basically. I can use grep to search for terms. So I want to kind of show you how grep works and show you some common things that we do with grep. In order to do that, I'm going to set up a little test file for me to work with. So let me see what I have here. Yeah, so I've got a bunch of these exercises in my directory. And if I want to, I could, like we just saw, take that and redirect it into, some file called test.txt. This is nothing new just yet, just kind of trying to set the stage here. So here I have a file that contains a list of all the files, the output from ls. Let's say I'm only interested in finding the exercises. I only want to see things that are relating to the exercises. I can use the grep command for this. So first I type in what it is that I'm searching for. I'm searching for the word exercise. And then where do I want to search for it? I want to search for it in test.txt. And once you run this command, note what it shows me. It shows me all of the lines in which it was able to find this word. It shows me the contents of the entire line. I think that's important to understand. It does show me the contents of the entire line. Could actually probably make that even more clear if I rerun this example using the -L flag with ls, since that also shows all of the additional permissions. So if I replace it, you can see, okay, yes, it shows me all of the lines that contain this word, and it also highlights it for me, shows me where that word pops up. So extremely, extremely useful command. One way that we can use this command, actually I'm using files to perform this, but one way that I actually use this command, or the more common way, I guess is a better way of saying it, that I would use this command, is to leave the files out of the equation. Like, why do we need to bring this file in? Why do I need this file with all this stuff? Can't I just have grep search the output of ls directly without having to make a file with all that information and then feed the file back in? It feels almost like it's an extra step. And so that kind of brings us to the next topic, which is the pipe command. So piping falls into kind of a similar bucket as redirects, but redirects always have a file as one part of the equation. With a pipe, it's always going to be commands. I'm taking the output from one command and I'm putting it into another. So piping is a way of chaining commands together. No files involved when I'm using the pipe command. Just commands. So if I wanted to try and rerun this same example using the pipe command, I would do it like this. I would say ls-l, that gets me all of this. Pipe, grep, exercise. Notice that I don't have to put the file name after this. There is no file. I'm using a pipe, so it's not going to look for a file. It's just going to use the output of the command that I am piping in. And you can see that I get the exact same output without having to involve files whatsoever. So pipe and grep go hand in hand. Pipe and grep go together all the time. All the time. Run a command, search the output of that command for whatever I happen to be particularly interested in. So this kind of format of a command that you see right now, where it's, some command of interest piped into grep, very, 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 very common way to use the pipe command. Very common way of using pipe. But again, I want to repeat, I know I've already said this, but it's so important, and it was such a confusing thing for me for a while, so I just want to make sure you all understand the difference between redirects and pipes, right? If there's a redirect pointing to the right, that means from a command into a file. If it's pointing to the left, that's the opposite, from a file into a command. If it's a pipe, there's no files at all. It's from a command into a command. And you can actually, as well, while you won't see me do this terribly often, right, I can also keep adding pipes, right? So I can take the output of grep and feed it into the sort command, and I could pipe in another command. So there's no limit to how many of these commands I can chain together. In fact, you know, the super hackers out there love to see how many wild commands they can pipe together, so that they don't have to run a whole bunch of things. They can just run one super long monster command that does everything they need all in one go. You don't have to do that. I want to make it absolutely clear. If this feels intimidating to you and you'd rather redirect the output into a file and use the file to, you know, feed it back into a command, then by all means, there's nothing wrong with that. You're not going to hear me complain about that, right? I'm just trying to explain all the options. There will be times when the pipe command is the most appropriate one to use. There'll be other times when the redirect command is the most appropriate one to use. Yeah. One or two more commands before we do another exercise. Oh yeah, and this is kind of the grand finale, I guess, to show you how it can all work together. Let's say I have my fancy pipe command, right? I'm using 3 commands. ls is getting fed into grep to search for a word, and then once that's done, I'm sorting everything. Let's say that I want to store that into a file. I want to take all of this and store it into a file. Well, I absolutely can, right? I can still use a redirect if I want to take the result of all of those things, that massive piped command with 3 parts, and store it into, you know, some sort of output. And you'll see that it does just that. So using pipes and redirects at the same time, totally allowed, totally necessary, totally useful. In fact, you know, very possible that you'll need to do something like that on the first homework assignment that we're going to be talking about in just a little bit. Before I turn you loose on the next exercise for today, does anybody have any questions about pipes versus redirects or anything like that? I tried to hopefully make it clear what the difference is. For this next one, for this next exercise, I'm going to ask you to use grep on a file that is posted on Canvas. So today's date on Canvas, there's a file that's called addresses.txt, and the next exercise has you using grep on this file of made-up addresses. There's a few different ways that you can access this file. You can, of course, navigate to it on Canvas and then right-click and save as, right? Be careful where you save it. Think about where you're at on the command line, right? Did you make a folder for this class? Then that's probably where you want to save it, right? So you'll have access to it on the command line. But I also want to show you another way that you can access this file. If this makes sense to you, please do it. But I'm going to show you another way just because I think it's useful and interesting. I'm going to show you the wget command. Wget stands for webget. This is a way to download files directly from the command line. All I have to do is put an address after this, and it will download that file and put it here. So the address for this is, of course, right up here in your browser. You can literally take that, copy it, and paste it after wget, or I'll leave it up here on the screen if you want to try and type it out that way. And that will download the file. I think I already had a copy, so it actually made a second copy for me. But yeah, it downloaded that text file and put it here. Here's the command again, if you want to try and use it on your own machine. Actually, let me print the exercise real quick, and then I'll put the command back up so that you can use it. We're on exercise 2, I believe. All right, there's a file on Canvas called address.txt. Download that file. Yep, absolutely. Here's the command to download that file if you want to use it, down here at the bottom of my screen. And then once you get that file, I want you to use grep to complete these 4 tasks. I didn't show you how to do all of these. You'll have to look up the command page to see what grep can do beyond what I've shown you. in order to pull this off. If you have trouble getting the file or anything like that, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to give you 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah, let me know if you need any help. Yes, what's up? That's actually, I think, so that's more of a Mac
Okay, so that's more.
thing. I think you can get it to change. Well, again, I think there's probably options that you can make it that way. It might be worth using Googling.
Okay, okay. Sounds good. I appreciate it.
That I'm surprised about. I don't know why you. Can you type the word bash for me? And then try. Yeah, so Mac may have show. Try WGET back. See if you can do. Just do the word WGET, hit enter and see. I would say go ahead and hit exit to get out of here. Just type the things. And unfortunately, you're just gonna have to right click it on I don't know why you don't have that command. That's genuinely surprising to me, but it's a good reason why you don't normally use it. Maybe it's a different command on a Mac. It might be something that I don't have a Mac, so I don't. But if somebody with a Mac wants to Google and see if there's a different command, like maybe a Mac OS X or something, might have a solution.
If I have room, you can install WGET.
Hey, what's up?
Oh, okay. But you might need to install it. I heard it. I installed it. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I had to do the same thing. Okay, thanks for helping me.
So what's the problem? Is it give you an issue? Yeah, so it's come to my attention that Macs maybe don't have the command anymore. I might have to do some Googling. There's got to be an alternative way, but I don't have a Mac, so that's my issue. But if you can also just right click and download it.
Okay.
That's why I showed you both ways. What's up? Huh? Okay. Sure. So this is always going to be a file. This is showing. So like but I'm not using that system. I'm using Solo. Yeah, so I think you definitely can put notifications, which is great. Like that's an additional flag. So you have dash B, which is
Oh,
yours.
how many days?
Yeah. Actually, it's also occasional. So I
Oh,
take that.
okay.
Those and but you can also use dash A to bring that up. If you want. Yeah. Something like that. That's exactly what that is. Yeah, it does. Yeah. Yes. No, it's closed out. Yeah, I think it needs to be dash dash A. I just need to restart it.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so that's just making it so.
I've done that so many times.
Okay. All right, I know some of you are probably still working on these. These are tricky, right? I kind of turned you loose on some tricky ones. It's totally okay if you struggled with these. It's totally okay if you got stuck. I'll be honest with you. I've done these before. I've used these in class before. I don't remember off the top of my head how to do these things. I'm gonna have to solve them the same way that you were solving them just now, which is by looking things up in the manual and trying it out and kind of seeing how it all fits together. That's programming, right? That's a big thing that I'm trying to do in this class is instill some confidence in all of you that if you don't know how to do something, you have the confidence to figure it out, right? Say, well, I don't know how to do this, but I know where to look it up.
I know how I can figure it out. So let's start with the first one. We want to pull the complete entries of all the individuals who are from Illinois. So if we start very simply just by looking for the word, or would it be IL? Let me refresh my memory. I mean, it would be either Illinois or IL, I think would work. So if I grep IL out of the addresses file, that'll show me all of the lines that have IL in it. So I'm getting kind of warmer, right? Getting a little bit closer to what I'm looking for. But I want all the information for the entire entry, not just the city and the state, but also all the stuff that comes before it. So for that, we need to take a look at the grep manual and see what options we have available to us. And I believe for this one, the option that's going to help us out the most is kind of down at the bottom here. Capital B, dash capital B, for before says print however many numbers of lines we want before the matching lines. So for each of these matches, I want to print the 3 lines that occur before it. So if I use the up arrow to go back and modify this command, I'll put in a dash B3 flag to the grep, and we'll see that, okay, beautiful, beautiful. That appears to have done exactly what I was hoping it would do. For the next one, it wants us to pull the complete entries who have a phone number with the area code 772. And it says, keep in mind it has to be the first 3 digits of the phone number. Okay, so for this one, if we take a look and see the phone number comes here, right? I think that hint about the first 3 numbers is trying to get you to include the parentheses around the area code. So notice that they all follow that same format. That's a good thing. So what I'm looking for is grep 772 in parentheses, since it's the area code. I need 1 line before and I need 2 lines after. So I believe there was an A flag for grep, similar to the B flag. So if I type just 772, oops, oh, so it didn't like the parentheses actually, but if I put quotes around it, would that make it happier? Yes, absolutely. That's a good tip. If the command line ever gets mad at you about a particular string or particular parenthesis being in there, quotes can help fix that problem. So that shows me the phone numbers, but remember, I want the 2 lines before and the 1 line after. So I'm going to add in those flags like that. Oh, did I get it backwards? It was 1 line before and 2 lines after. I'm sorry. 1 line before and 2 lines after. There we go. That's better. So that takes care of the second one. I don't know if I'll have time to get to all of these because I do want to make sure I talk about the homework, but I'll do at least one more. Count the number of people who are from Kentucky. So we just want to know how many people are from Kentucky. If I say grep KY from the file, it'll very happily tell me that, right? But I don't want to actually see the cities and the states. I just want to know how many times does Kentucky appear. And I got to imagine that one of these flags is going to be the one that I need. Let's see. Count. There it is. Dash C. Let's give it a try. Two. Perfect. That one wasn't too bad. The last one is probably the trickiest of all. It wants us to pull entries from anyone who is in North or South Carolina or Virginia using one single command. So let me think about, I'm not even sure I would, this is a tricky one, isn't it? I'm trying to think of what flags I would want to use with this one. Did anybody get this far? Can anybody point me in the right direction? Regex, that was kind of what I was afraid of. I feel like there's got to be another answer that doesn't use regular expressions. But let's talk about regular expressions for a minute because it is something that's good for us to know about. Regular expressions are a common tool that's used for string matching. So grep is used to search things, right? Regular expressions are used for string matching in all sorts of contexts, not just grep, but you've probably already used regular expressions in some form if you've done any kind of advanced searches on Google, for example. You can use plus or star as part of your search to modify the things that get searched for. So for example, if I search for star followed by the word ball, that's going to bring up things for baseball and basketball and football and anything that ends with the word ball, right? So the star is a regular expression. It's a placeholder that means anything. And grep uses regular expressions. I would love to talk to you about regular expressions, but not today. Actually, I think regular expressions is a great topic for us to talk about later on in the semester, but not quite right now. I fully believe that a regular expression could solve this problem. I feel like there's got to be another solution for it, but I'm actually going to do the unsatisfying thing and move on because we only have 20 minutes left, and I really want to make sure we talk about the homework for today. So I'll think about that one and maybe revisit it next week. All right. The last thing that I want to show you for today is how to connect to another computer. Because on the homework assignment, which I'm getting ready to talk to you about, that's exactly what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to connect to a server that is here on campus and manipulate some files. Navigate the server. I don't actually know where this computer is physically located. It is on campus somewhere. I know that for a fact. I don't know exactly where on campus this computer is actually physically located. But the engineering department, McKelvey, provides a server for us to use. And by us, I mean all of us, students and faculty alike. You have a directory on there, whether you've used it or not. Some classes use it, I know. If all you've taken is 131, then you probably haven't touched it at all, right? So I wouldn't have expected that. But in other upper level classes, you might get to it. In order to access the server, we're going to use the SSH command. So the SSH command is definitely one of the most common ways that I'm going to use to connect to a different computer over the internet, over the network. So I want to run commands that aren't on my computer. I want to run commands that are on a different computer. We have to type an address. It's going to look much like an address. And the one that we want to use is the one that the university has set up for us to use. This is the address to get there, shell.cec.wusel.edu. Now you have to be careful, actually, before you run this command, right? You have to log in with your username, your WUSTL username, and your WUSTL password, right? And so in order to ensure that that works properly, I take my WUSTL username. So don't put dshook out in front. That's not your WUSTL login. That's my WUSTL login. Put your WUSTL login out in front of that address with the @ sign. So I'm saying I want to log in as dshook to this server. Do you run into a problem?
Actually, it doesn't matter. I have a dot in my WUSTL address.
It should not matter if there's a dot in your WUSTL key. No, that should work just fine. Yeah, great question. Yep. Whatever your WUSTL login is, stick that out in front of the @ sign. And now we're ready to actually do this. This is actually going to try and connect. So, uh-oh. Why? Did I get the address wrong? What did I do wrong? I just tested this morning, but I did it at home. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it. Did I get the address wrong? Let me double check the address real quick. Did it work for you?
It worked.
Good. I'm glad. I'm very confused as to why it didn't work for me. Did I get fired or something? JK. Shell.cec. That's it. That's the one. I just had to do it twice for some reason. Okay, great. It worked the second time. It's gonna ask you for your password. This trips some people up. When you start typing, that cursor's not gonna move. That doesn't mean it didn't work. It's for security, right? It's not gonna show anything on the screen. So it does work, I promise you. Type in your password and then hit enter. And we're in. We're in. Now be careful, this looks like a command line, just like the command line we've been using in this class for the last couple days. However, we logged in to a server. These commands are being run not on your computer, but on WashU's server. Now the good news is, WashU's pretty good at securing their stuff. They're not gonna let you do anything that you're not supposed to do, right? So don't worry about destroying something. You have free reign over your own home directory. So you can put whatever files you want in your home directory, which is where we're at right now. In fact, if you take a look at pwd, one of the first commands that I showed you, you see this is how you get to my home directory. Actually, that's going to be useful information for you here in just a few moments when we talk about the homework assignment. But yours will look a little different. I'll have your username on there. And I don't know if there's anything in your home directory or not. I know there's stuff in mine, because I've used my home directory before, but this is not on my computer. Remember, this is sitting on the server. This is sitting on WashU's server. Actually, if you log into one of these computers, it's in the labs, although there aren't very many of them anymore, it's the same files. You'll see the same files on the computer as you see here, right? But all the commands that I've shown you about, they exist here, and you can use them here. One of the more interesting ones to take a look at is who, which does exactly what you think. It shows who's logged on right now. And there's all y'all logged on. There's me, right? Shows everybody who's logged on to this server right now and what time they logged on, right? That's kind of cool. Let's talk about the homework assignment. Because for the homework assignment, I'm going to ask you to log on to this server and go to my home directory and then do some things. Let me show you what those things are by pulling up the assignment on Canvas. There's actually two parts. So what I'm talking about right now is the first part. I'll go over the second part as well. So the first part, we actually just did SSH into the server, log in with your WSO key and password, navigate to, what kind of a path is this? What kind of a path is that? There's only two options. That's absolute path. How do you know? Starts with a slash. I'm telling you an absolute path. So, use whatever command is appropriate to get to this location. That's my home directory right there. That's my name, right? And inside of my home directory, I'm telling you, I've got a folder called CSE237. And inside of that directory, CSE237, there's actually, I want you to make a folder with your name on it. So I'm willing to bet that maybe somebody's already sneakily done this while I've been talking. Yes, absolutely. Some people have already done this while I've been talking, which is fine. Not a problem. Not surprised to see that happen. Notice, though, that there's also a file in here called 237.txt. And if you cat that to take a look at it, you'll see that it looks like a bunch of gibberish. That's somewhat intentional. But in this file, I have embedded all of your WSO logins. So somewhere in this file is your WSO login. Right? And I want you to find it and extract it out. So think about what commands we've talked about that'll let you do that. And I want you to take the entire, so it's going to appear somewhere in the middle of the line. So it's going to be random gibberish, your WSO key, random gibberish. I want you to take that whole line, gibberish and all, and stick it into a file that is inside of the directory that you created. So all of that is listed out here, right? Step by step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each of these 4 things is really one command. You can do it in one command using a lot of the information that we talked about today. In fact, you can do it using only the stuff we talked about today. That's kind of the point, right? Is to use the concepts we've been talking about in class. I know that you can also do this by grabbing the file and doing a Control F in your text editor. I'm not an idiot. Yes, I know that you can do it that way if you really want to, but that defeats the whole purpose of what we're here for. I'm not going to chase you down and shake your fist at you and make sure that you're doing it the proper way or whatever, but I'm asking you to do it the proper way, right? That's what I'm looking for. I do have some ways to tell if you have or haven't done things the way that I'm expecting you to, but all of this is done, all of this can be done via the command line. It's 4 commands. It is quite literally 4 commands that I'm asking you to run and execute. Maybe a 5th one down here just to verify that the permissions are correct. And that's it. That's part 1. That's all you have to do for part 1. For part 2, I'm actually asking you to do a little bit of writing in English. We've talked about a lot of commands in this class over the last couple of weeks, but there are so many more out there. So some of you have some command line experience, which is great. If you have some command line experience, I want you to tell me about a command that maybe you've used in the past that is useful. Explain to me a little bit about it. Explain to me some of the options that it presents. It doesn't need to be everything, right? Most of these are not going to be more than a couple of paragraphs. I think is plenty. I just want you to do a little bit of exploring, a little bit of experimenting. If this is your brand new first time using the command line, then you're gonna have to do some Googling, right? Look around, see what commands are out there, see what's useful. Don't tell me ones that we've already done in class, please. Every semester somebody tries to tell me about grep, and I'm like, no, please don't. Please don't tell me about grep. Please don't tell me about CD, right? Find a new command, one that we haven't discussed in class, one that you think maybe I don't know about. This is actually one of the assignments I like the best because I genuinely learn about new cool commands every time I run this assignment. It's really fun for me. So find one that you think that maybe I haven't heard of before, that's cool, might be useful, and to submit. For part 1, you don't have to submit anything. You're executing those commands on the server. I will be able to see your folder and your file and check it all. And so as long as you do that by 1 week from today, next Wednesday, part 1 is done. You don't have to submit anything for that. If you log on to the server, make the file successfully, that completes part 1. For part 2, type it up in a Word doc. Remember, not going to be more than a couple paragraphs, probably at the most. I'm not looking for, please don't give me 10 pages. Oh my gosh, do not want page max, please, for part 2. And then that one you can just go ahead and upload to Canvas whenever you get that one done. And I think that covers all I need. Please be careful. Let me announce this as well. Please be careful with this file. There's no need for you to change the contents of that file, but it is possible for you all to accidentally delete it, for example. That's a thing that can happen. So just be careful. And if that happens, if you log in and you see that that file doesn't exist for whatever reason, or you can't find your WSO key, and you're like absolutely 100% sure it's not in there, shoot me a message. It's possible for the file to get screwed up. I have a copy. I can very quickly replace it with a fresh copy if I need to. But please keep in mind that we are sharing this file, right? You're all using the same copy of the same file, so please be very careful when you're using this file. This will be true for later assignments as well, that you don't, accidents happen. I'm not going to be mad at you. I've accidentally deleted stuff plenty of times. Just please give me a heads up. Let me know if that happens so that I can get it fixed and we don't slow anybody else down. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah. Why do you have write permissions on the file? I'm not sure that you do actually. But the issue is that you have write permissions to the directory. In order to make your directory and to make the files, you have to have write permissions on the CSE237 directory, which also gives you delete permissions on stuff that exists in the directory. So yeah. And on future assignments, it'll become even more of a balancing act with people doing stuff. Somebody already made a file here that needs to go in your directory. Very common thing, happens all the time. I'm not trying to shame anyone or anything like that, but that's just the kind of stuff that's going to happen. It's fun in a chaotic sort of way. That's part of the fun of working on a server. Any other questions about this assignment before I turn you all loose on it? I want to make sure everybody has a good idea of what I'm looking for, what I'm expecting. Okay. Well, I think that's probably going to wrap it up for today. Covered all the ground I wanted to cover. Next week, we're going to start talking about scripting, so that'll be a heck of a lot of fun. Hope you all have a nice weekend. Stay warm. And I'll see you back here on Monday.
Could I ask a question?
Please. Give me just 1 second. I'll be right there.
For sure.